Imagine being one of the world's most powerful military superpowers, Nerway, and then getting completely humiliated by a bunch of farmers with old rifles and donkeys. Sounds like a joke, right? Well, for the Soviet Union, it was a nightmare, one that lasted nearly 10 years. Welcome to the Soviet-Afghan War, the USSR's very own. Vietnam. The year was still 1979, and the Cold War was in full swing. The Soviets had spent decades expanding their influence, and now they had their eyes on Afghanistan. Why? Because the communist-backed Afghan government was struggling to hold on to power, and Moscow wasn't about to let it fall to a bunch of rebels, or worse, the West. So, in December 1979, Soviet tanks rolled across the border, and just like that, the USSR was knee-deep in a war it thought would be a quick in-and-out mission. Spoiler alert, it was not. The Soviets came in guns blazing, expecting to crush the Afghan resistance in no time. They set up a puppet government, installed a leader who, fun fact, would later get assassinated by the Taliban, and thought, cool, problem solved. But there was just one tiny issue. The Afghans were not going down without a fight. Enter the Mujahideen. These were guerrilla fighters, made up of locals, tribesmen, and Islamic fundamentalists who were about to give the Soviets a masterclass in unconventional warfare. Armed with AK-47s, RPGs, and an insane amount of determination, they fought back hard, using the mountains, caves, and their deep knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. And when the Soviets tried to bomb them into oblivion, they just melted into the landscape and came back stronger. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. The United States, still salty about Vietnam and eager to give the Soviets a taste of their own medicine, saw an opportunity through Operation Cyclone. The CIA started funneling weapons, money, and training to the Mujahideen. And what was the crown jewel of their aid? The Stinger missile. These bad boys turned the war upside down. Suddenly, the Mujahideen could shoot down Soviet Nyars, helicopters, and jets. And let me tell you, there's nothing more demoralizing than getting blown out of the sky by the very people you were supposed to easily defeat. The Soviets now had a full-blown Schwarzer quagmire on their hands. As the years dragged on, Soviet morale hit rock bottom. Their soldiers were not only battling a relentless enemy, but also disease, poor leadership, and the crushing realization that they were not winning this war. To make things worse, back home, people were getting angry. Mothers were receiving zinc coffins, the Soviet equivalent of satchel body bags. And suddenly, the war that was supposed to be a simple stabilization mission turned into an embarrassing disaster. By Massacut 1988, the writing was on the wall. The USSR, already struggling with economic issues and internal unrest, needed out. The last Soviet soldier left Afghanistan in May 1989, marking the end of the war. The final tally: over 15,000 Soviet troops killed, millions of Afghans dead or displaced, and an Afghanistan left in ruins, setting the stage for the rise of the Taliban. Oh, and did I mention the very fighters the US helped arm? Some of them later turned into Al-Qaeda. Yeah, that aged well. The Soviet-Afghan War was supposed to be a flex of Soviet power, but ended up being one of the biggest humiliations in their history. It drained their economy, shattered their military confidence, and many historians even argue that it played a key role in the collapse of the Soviet Union just 2 years later. So, if there's one lesson to take from this, never underestimate a determined enemy, especially one who knows their mountains better than you. But what do you think? Was the Soviet-Afghan War the USSR's biggest blunder, or was it doomed from the start? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And hit that subscribe button